Hey there everybody, it's Russ. In this video we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give you my first impressions of the Blackheart All Road aluminum. So this bike is pretty interesting because it's a bit of a diversion from some of the bikes that I've been reviewing lately. So definitely pretty zippy, more aggressive than some of the steel bikes and of course the cargo bikes I've been taking a look at. But hey, variety is the spice of life, right? Right now it's fall here in Catalonia, and it's just the perfect riding weather. So I'm gonna do a mixed terrain ride that Laura and I often do. She's out of commission with a hurt wing at the moment. So today I am going solo, but I guess it'll give me time to nerd out about this bike with you guys, give you my first impressions. This video is for me as much as it is for you guys. So when I do the final review, I'll have a good sense of what I first thought about it. Check out this scenery, it's just epic. Whew, can't beat it. So the first thing to know about this bike, it is an all-road bike. It's a little bit more on the road side of the spectrum when compared to a gravel bike. Right now I've got it set up with 650B by 48, but it will also take a 700 by 40. I'm gonna swap to that wheel set after a couple rides with this, just to get a couple of impressions of what I like best. From a clearance perspective, there's room in the fork, but really 650B by 48, maybe 50 at the absolute most with very little clearance is what you can squeeze in here. But personally, I think it rides really good. You know, one of the big kind of criticisms of aluminum is that it's harsh. But once you get tires this wide, I feel like that overrides whatever kind of material sensations you might have. I think the other thing that drew me to aluminum is that it's, you know, it's a little bit zippier, it's a little bit lighter than steel, but still an alloy, except for the fork, of course. So I think for those like me who don't ever see themselves going full carbon, this is actually an interesting proposition. Blackheart is based in the States, in Los Angeles, but this year they did start EU distribution through Germany, and that's how this was able to come together. So it's a brand I've been wanting to try, and stoked that I've got a chance to try it now that they have EU distribution. So if you're in the EU and you're interested, you can buy this bike. Okay, Garmin just told me that the climb has begun. So we're at the top of the climb here. Sorry I didn't film. A little bit more traffic than I would like. But speaking of climbing, I do love how this bike goes uphill. It's got pretty short chainstays. I believe they're like 420 or maybe even a little bit less. So a little bit more tuck than some of the bikes I've been riding. In terms of gearing, rocking the pie plate, 11 to 51, 11 speed. So I can stay within the HG hub family, and it's the new Madrone jab rear derailleur. And a lot of you have been asking how it shifts, and it shifts perfectly. It's like a native Shimano derailleur at this point. Like I mentioned, the bike is aluminum, and the welds look super clean. Usually there's like a stack of nickels, but they did do some finishing work to smooth it out. So it looks really sleek, almost carbon-esque. One thing that's different from my usual bikes is this is partially internally routed. Thank God it doesn't go through the headset, otherwise I wouldn't be reviewing it. That said, these apertures for the cable, you know, you screw these plates in, so there's a lot of room. So it's actually not very hard to thread it through. And it also has a little brace on there for a front derailleur, which I may put on eventually. Crank is the Paul Pure cranks, which are square taper, but the bike itself is T47. So I did a bit of a hack using a T47 to BSA adapter and then put a square taper bottom bracket in there just for funsies. I think eventually I'll swap out this kind of generic 1x and put a 2x ring and check it out in that. But I did want to see how this Madrone jab derailleur shifts, and it shifts pretty awesome. Other things on the build, the brakes are Growtac equals in silver. I was really going for a silver and black motif, I guess, Panda. When you get the frame set, it comes with a carbon seat post as well as all the parts for the headset. So it's pretty plug and play. The cockpit here, I'm running Ritchie Ventramax bars, which I like. Shifters are 105, 11 speed. Again, this is 2x, so I may do a 2x conversion, even though it's set up 1x at the moment. To support the bag, it's got the really brilliant, like Brooks front bag support, which I think is really underrated, but it's a good way to carry this style bag, protect the frame, especially if you have a carbon fork. Yes, this has a carbon fork, and you can't put like a rack. So I gotta say, this is like the first kind of decent climb I've done on this bike, and it goes uphill really well. I dig it. Let's see how it goes downhill. Okay, so we're up and over the climb, and it descended really well. I was afraid that would be on the twitchy side, because it is a much shorter wheelbase than I'm accustomed to, but it was actually pretty good. Compared to the slacker gravel bikes I ride, where you kind of steer more with your hips, this really invites you to kind of dive in, like carve, a little bit more aggressive. Still overall manageable. I'm not the best descender, so I wasn't going crazy with this thing, but definitely leans on the responsive side of things, but super fun. Right, so we're coming up to that magical stretch of gravel that I love. You're just in this canopy of trees that are all changing colors. Totally feels like parts of Montana. There's also a river over here to the right of me. And apparently you can fly fish it, catch and release. It's pretty cool. Whenever we go through this stretch, it's just like a little bit, reminds us a little bit of the US Mountain West. Here's the sign, Zona de Pesca Libre Senza Morts, so no death. Never seen anyone fish here though. So in terms of riding on actual gravel, with these big tires, it does really well on the smoother stuff. I imagine for rolling through baby heads and stuff, it's not the ideal bike. But for kind of champagne gravel, fixed terrain road, not too tore up fire roads, and this would be an excellent like zippy bike. The next interesting feature on this ride is this stoplight, where you have to stop for like 8 minutes, and then it changes, and you have a couple minutes to get up this really steep hill, like 16-18%, before the wave of traffic comes. Which is a shame because it goes through like a really scenic part, but I think I'll put the testing cam and show you guys what it's like. Okay, here we are coming up to the rather random signal. Looks like it's red. Always hard to tell if it actually senses you on a bike. Let's see. Do you see me? Do you see me? Okay. So that white thing there has a little red light that flashed for a second. And now we wait. It's like pole position. The second it turns green, you gotta book it because they give you like just enough time to get up and over before they let the next wave of traffic through. They let the camera run or shut it off and turn it on when it turns green. Turn green, stuff some gummies in my mouth. Vamos. Oh yeah. Whew. 16%, 17, 18. Good time to enjoy it. And super steep descent. Yeah. So I think I'm actually gonna wrap up here. Nothing too exciting. So I'll meet you guys in the studio and I'll wrap up my first impressions. Okay, so I'm back from my ride. Just some final thoughts on this first video on this bike. And I gotta say, it's been a really fun ride. Definitely a little bit more on the performance end of things, but because of its classic looks, like I don't feel like awkward riding it. There's some bikes, you know, say like a Colnago YRS1, which, you know, I would never even consider, or even all carbon bikes. It's just not my thing. I feel like I would have to cosplay to ride it. You know, it's like a kid wearing their dad's like tuxedo. Like it's not a good fit. You kind of have to, you just feel like you're playing dress up. But on this bike, however, it has a little bit of a low key, classy look, just really sleek, simple. With some modern features, you know, the partially internal routing, you know, T47, you know, the racier geometry, carbon fork, carbon seat post, all that stuff. But for me, I feel like it's a bike that I don't feel completely out of place on. I know there's a lot of like woo-woo psychological, emotional things, but aren't most bike purchases like woo-woo psychological, emotional things? But do you know what I mean? I mean, I feel like a lot of people misunderstand me to think that I don't like fast bikes or riding fast. That's just not the case. It's just most of those bikes I just feel really awkward on, and I don't want to get the whole like Pas Normal super expensive kit just to feel at home on those bikes. But this one, well, this one I feel like it's relatively accessible because it does have some kind of classic styling to it. Whereas there are some bikes or some brands that, you know, just not for me. So like I mentioned, this bike is rocking the Madrone jab, and it shifted flawlessly. It almost felt like just like a native derailleur with the Shimano 105 shifters. I'm going to do a separate video on that derailleur just to show you guys how it functions, what you can customize, how it shifts on the stand, all that good stuff in a separate vid, probably this week. But so far so good for a bike that's kind of like on the periphery of what I've been covering the last couple years. Really enjoying it. Am I going to go full on roadie? Probably not, but this kind of bridges that gap. Let me know your thoughts about the bike and what you guys want to know in the final review, what bikes you want me to compare to. And if you guys dig this content, found it entertaining or useful, please consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon. That's the best way to do it. It gives us a budget, lets us go on trips so we can test these products in real life, IRL. YouTube is just going through a lot of turmoil at the moment with all the AI stuff and just the constant algorithm changes. And the only thing, honestly, that's making this a viable thing is our awesome Patreon supporters. Just give us kind of like a base salary to work from so we can continue to make content. Check out the links below, and as always, keep the supple side down.